Listen closely, because the voice you're about to hear is not noble, not wise, not heroic. It is bitter, angry, spiteful, the voice of a man trapped in his own mind, a man who rejects society, rejects happiness, and even rejects himself. This is the Underground Man, Dostoevsky's most unsettling creation. Written in 1864, in the midst of Russia's great social upheaval, when intellectuals dreamed of rational utopias and scientific solutions to human suffering, and through him, Dostoevsky whispers a truth that many fear, that human beings do not simply seek reason, progress, or happiness. We seek something far darker, far more complex. We seek freedom, even if it destroys us. But this is not just a story about one bitter man in St. Petersburg. This is a prophecy about the modern soul, a warning about what happens when we try to reduce the magnificent complexity of human nature to simple formulas of cause and effect. The underground man lives in isolation, beneath the floorboards of society. He is intelligent, but paralyzed by his own thoughts. He despises society, yet cannot live without its recognition. He hates others, yet hates himself infinitely more. He tells us, with brutal honesty, "I am a sick man. I am a spiteful man. I am an unattractive man." But listen deeper. This is not self-pity. This is defiance. The underground man refuses to pretend he is good, refuses to wear the mask of social respectability. He strips himself naked before us, demanding we see the truth beneath our own masks. He is a retired civil servant, 40 years old, living off a small inheritance. He could integrate into society. He could find a wife, a job, a purpose. But he won't. Why? Because to do so would be to surrender his most precious possession, his ability to say no. The underground man represents the part of the human soul that refuses to be optimized, refuses to be improved, refuses to be happy on someone else's terms. He is consciousness turned against itself, the mind as its own prison warden. And in his very paralysis, he finds a twisted form of power, the power to resist everything, including his own good. This is why he terrifies us, not because he is evil, but because he is honest about the darkness we all carry within us. In Dostoevsky's time, Russian intellectuals were intoxicated by Western ideas. They believed in the power of reason to solve human problems. They dreamed of building a perfect society, a crystal palace of logic, science, and mathematical precision. The radical thinker Nikolai Chernyshevsky wrote of a world where human beings would act according to rational self-interest, where suffering would be eliminated through proper education, where paradise could be built on earth through scientific planning. But the underground man laughed, a bitter, knowing laugh. "Give man everything," he said, "comfort, wealth, happiness, perfect health, and he will still rebel. He will break it all, burn it down, just to prove he is free." Why? Because man is not a piano key to be pressed by the fingers of natural law. He is not a mathematical equation. He is chaos. He is contradiction. He is the creature who will choose suffering simply to remind himself he can choose. What if man's whole purpose on earth, asks the underground man, consists precisely in this continuous process of achieving, or in other words, in living itself, and not in the goal? The journey, not the destination. The struggle, not the solution. The freedom to err, not the compulsion to be correct. This is Dostoevsky's devastating critique of utopian thinking, that it misunderstands human nature at its core. We are not problems to be solved, but mysteries to be lived. Here we reach the most disturbing insight of the underground man, that there is a strange, inexplicable pleasure in humiliation, a sick joy in self-destruction. He confesses to us scenes from his past, how he deliberately sought out situations where he would be insulted, how he provoked confrontations he was sure to lose, how he wallowed in his own failures like a pig in mud. This is not masochism for its own sake. This is something deeper, more philosophical. This is the assertion of human dignity through its very denial. By choosing to suffer, by selecting his own pain, the underground man proves that he is not a machine responding to stimuli. He is a free agent, capable of acting against his own rational self-interest. Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart, Dostoevsky wrote elsewhere. But the underground man goes further. Pain becomes a form of luxury, a proof of consciousness, a badge of authentic humanity. He knows his actions are self-destructive, He knows he could choose differently, but that knowledge itself becomes the source of his strange freedom. I exercise my fantastic will, he declares, in order to be assured of my own existence. In a world that seeks to reduce everything to mechanical causation, the underground man uses his own perversity as proof that the human soul cannot be reduced, cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled. Though written years before the brothers Karamazov, the underground man anticipates Dostoevsky's later meditation on freedom in the famous Grand Inquisitor chapter. The Inquisitor argues that human beings cannot handle true freedom, that they will gladly trade it for security, comfort, and certainty. The underground man embodies the opposite truth, that some souls will choose freedom even when it makes them miserable. This is the terrible paradox of human nature that Dostoevsky understood. We desperately want to be free, but freedom is almost unbearable. It means taking responsibility for our choices. It means living with uncertainty. It means accepting that we might choose wrongly, might hurt ourselves and others, might fail spectacularly. Most people, faced with this burden, will indeed choose the Crystal Palace, the safety of systems, the comfort of being told what to do, the peace of surrendering their will to higher authorities. But there will always be the underground men and women among us, those who reject the comfortable cage, who insist on their right to be wrong, who would rather suffer in freedom than prosper in slavery. These are the ones who keep the human spark alive, even as they seem to be destroying themselves. What does this mean for us, living in the 21st century? Look around. We live in an age that would have amazed the utopian dreamers of Dostoevsky's time. We have technology that borders on magic. We have comfort that would have been unimaginable to previous generations. We have systems of knowledge and entertainment designed to optimize our happiness and well-being, and yet, mental illness rates soar, suicide rates climb, people report feeling more isolated, more anxious, more meaningless than ever before. Why? Because we have built our own Crystal Palace, and the underground man in all of us is rebelling. We are told that the algorithm knows what we want better than we do. We are offered customized experiences, personalized feeds, optimized everything. But something in us recoils. Something in us wants to choose the wrong movie, take the inefficient route, make the mistake that the system would have prevented. We are witnessing the digitization of the very rational paradise that Dostoevsky's underground man railed against. And our response? Some of us retreat into our own underground, scrolling mindlessly while feeling nothing, performing happiness on social media while dying inside, consuming endless entertainment while starving for meaning. Others rebel more dramatically, rejecting expertise, choosing conspiracy theories over evidence, burning down institutions just to watch them burn. Neither response is healthy, but both are recognizably human. Both are attempts to assert agency in a world that increasingly treats us as data points in someone else's algorithm. The underground man teaches us that this rebellion is inevitable. You cannot optimize the human soul. You cannot engineer away suffering. You cannot solve the riddle of consciousness with better technology or smarter systems. So what do we do with this knowledge? How do we live with the truth of our own underground? First, we stop pretending that we are purely rational beings seeking only happiness and avoiding only pain. We admit that we are more complex, more contradictory, more beautifully broken than any system can account for. Second, we make space for it. In our personal lives, we allow ourselves to be irrational sometimes. We choose the difficult path when it calls to us. We resist the tyranny of optimization. We defend our right to make mistakes. In our societies, we build in checks against the Crystal Palace. We preserve spaces for dissent, for inefficiency, for the beautiful human waste of art and philosophy, and all the things that serve no practical purpose except to remind us that we are more than our functions. Third, we transform it. The underground man's rebellion is sterile, self-defeating, but his insight is profound. We can take his fierce defense of human dignity and channel it into something creative rather than destructive. We can rebel against dehumanization by creating more beauty, by forming deeper relationships, by asking better questions, by refusing to be reduced to our productivity or our problems. The underground man is not a hero. He is not a role model. He is a necessary voice, a guardian at the gates of human dignity, refusing to let us forget what makes us irreducibly human. He reminds us that the deepest truths about human nature cannot be captured in formulas or systems. They live in the spaces between reason and madness, between order and chaos, between the light of consciousness and the darkness of our own underground. In our age of artificial intelligence and algorithmic life, his voice becomes more relevant, not less. As machines become better at predicting our behavior, something in us will always want to prove them wrong. As systems become more efficient at delivering what we want, we will discover that what we truly need cannot be delivered by any system. We need the right to be wrong. We need the freedom to suffer. We need the dignity of choice, even when we choose poorly. These are not bugs in the human operating system. They are features. They are what make us human. So tonight, as you return to your own life, ask yourself, where is your underground? What parts of yourself do you keep hidden from the optimizing gaze of the world? What rebellions simmer beneath your compliance? What freedoms are you afraid to claim? Don't rush to fix these things. Don't hurry to make them rational. Simply acknowledge them. Honor them. Let them remind you that you are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The underground man's gift to us is not his bitterness or his paralysis. It is his refusal to pretend that being human is simple, that consciousness is comfortable, that freedom is easy. In that refusal, in that difficult honesty, lies the seed of whatever authentic life you might dare to build. The answer lies not above in the crystal palaces of reason, not around you in the systems of the world, but deep below, in your own underground, where your truest self waits to be acknowledged, to be honored, and perhaps, finally, to be free.